and given as a package of, medicines, wherein you say you have this medicine at this time and do this thing and so on. But Ayurvedic medicine and Ayurvedic, the whole science is much more than all that. So we talk a lot about the kind of food a person should have with the medicine, kind of people shouldn't have, and so on, right? So for us, ahara plays a very, very, very important role. Now, when we talk to a client, we need to find out what kind of ahara, what kind of cooking happens in their house, what kind of food they eat, because that can kind of directly hamper the progress that you would make with the drugs that you've prescribed. Secondly, if a person is not following good ahara, and if a person has this habit of having things that are not conducive to health, then that can dampen the agni. And when a person's agni is poor, any medicine that you give would take time to work and wouldn't really give the kind of effect that you would want it to. So certain questions that we would ask our clients today, we'll talk about those questions. So to begin with, frozen food. So when I went to the US for the first time, this was something that I was kind of shocked to see that everybody's kitchens had, everybody's refrigerators actually they had stacked it with frozen food, which was the easiest thing to cook. You just put it in the microwave and your food is ready. So how many of you have the habit of actually using frozen food? Anybody here who stores frozen food at home? Yeah? And what kind of frozen food do you use? Do you have like frozen vegetables, or okay? So basically you're getting something that's organic, and then okay. So then that's like okay. All right. So just from I just want to understand, when you cook with frozen food. So let's look at it one by one. Okay. So when you're using frozen vegetables, and when you cook using frozen vegetables, do you think that kind of takes away from the taste of what you're trying to make, or do you think it tastes the same? Do you think that's just more convenient to use? So it's just basically convenience, right? Okay. So frozen vegetables is one thing. Now, like somebody here just said that, they have frozen food. So how many of you have frozen food, not just vegetables which you take out and then you cook and make into something, but just frozen food in your refrigerators? Do you think exactly this prana? So frozen food has no prana. Frozen food, you're just basically oh yes, that's another very common thing. You know, people who cook food. I completely get that. So that's the first thing that you kind of have to educate your clients, and you have to actually it's not easy, but you have to actually tell them that for us the basic thing of using fresh vegetables, of using fresh ingredients in your cooking, is because when your ingredients are fresh, it is full of prana. And when your food, the ingredients that you use to cook food, is full of prana, the food that you make, and when you eat it warm, right, you're just basically giving yourself all the benefits that you actually require, and you just take, it alters the taste of your food and the effect of your food. The next thing that again, this is another very very convenient thing, where you have canned food. You have canned beans, you have canned tomatoes, you have canned just name it, and you have food that's canned. Even if it's organic food, even if you have organic tomatoes that are canned, if you look at the labels of these foods, so this is something that I've actually spoken with most of the people who I've consulted and so on. Even in India, this is a very in thing now, where you cook food and you put it in the freezer, and then you just take it out and you warm it and you have it, because both the husband and wife, they're working and nobody has time to actually cook food and wake up in the morning and make food. So the day you're off, everything is made and stored in the refrigerator. And then frozen food and canned food, again, very commonly used things. So this is something that I tell most of my clients. Read the label of your food. If you buy canned food, you buy frozen food, you buy processed food, read the label, the thing that's given at the back, where the ingredients are written, the nutrition, you have a table there, right? You read that table, and if you can't understand the label, if you can't understand the ingredients, if there are names that you don't understand, they're not names of just the vegetable, but names that you don't understand, then you know that the food in there is not good for you, because there are additives to it, there are processed, there are chemicals that are used to process the food, and that is bad for your health. So there would be some kind of a local produce that's available in winter, right? Fruits and vegetables. You might not get things that you might not get vegetables, all different kinds of vegetables, but there would be some kind of a local produce that grows during winter. You don't have any? Where do you live? It's always it's always safest to use vegetables that are locally produced in a particular place and in that particular season. You're absolutely right about that, because that is the healthiest food that you get, because the environment, the weather, the kind of location and everything kind of works on your body the same way. So if you eat food that's locally produced in a place, and you eat food that is fresh because it's grown in that particular season, that's the healthiest for your body. So you're actually saying that there are no vegetables in winter, vegetables and fruits, absolutely nothing? Okay. Okay, so then invariably that comes as frozen vegetables. That's true. So so apart from frozen food, from canned food, from processed food, the next the next thing is processed grains, like when you have all purpose flour that's used for your cooking, and other things that you actually store in your refrigerator. Just basically going by this one basic thing, that when you look at the label and you see things understand, you just know that that shouldn't go anywhere into your body, that shouldn't go anywhere close to your plate, because there's absolutely no prana in the food. There's a lot of chemicals that are added to preserve the food. Like most of this frozen food and canned food that you get, you can keep it for years together and that food doesn't get spoiled. So there's something wrong with, there's something wrong when you look at food. When food is freshly prepared, it has to go through that process where it gets spoiled. If you buy vegetables or fruits, and if they last in your refrigerator for a very long time, you know that there's something in that vegetable or fruit that is not good for you. So this was something that happened to me, when I was in the US for some time. So there was this one occasion where I went to a place, and I saw these really nice apples that were there, so I bought them. They looked really good, and they felt good and crispy and whatever. So I bought those, and this was like just when I reached the US. So I bought those, and we used them, and there was this one apple that was there, and I kind of forgot about it, and it was just lying somewhere in the refrigerator in my house. And later on, like after maybe a month or so, I was clearing things out of my refrigerator, and then this one thing like came out of it. It went rolling right into the thing, and I didn't see it. And then I took it out from my refrigerator, and I was actually shocked because I bought it almost a month ago and I'd completely forgotten about it. And this one apple that was lying in my refrigerator for almost a month was just as crisp and as, it just felt exactly the same way it did when I bought it. So I wanted to see whether was possibly some kind of a decay inside or whatever. So I cut the apple, and it was like, it was just so good. It just looked so good. It was crispy, and you can kind of feel it, right? So then I knew that there was something wrong with it, because obviously there's some kind of a preservative that's added to this to keep it fresh, and fruits shouldn't last for a month. So then I started doing a little bit of research to see, what kind of, where to go buy vegetables and fruits, because even if, so most of the time you eat these fruits raw, or you put them into a salad, or you do something with it. Not always do we cook these fruits and eat them, right? So then it's not good for you, because you're not really cleaning it, and you're not really, processing that particular food. So that's how I actually started doing a little bit of research to see, to understand what goes into your stomach, because I think that's very important. What you eat is what you are. So it is very important to know what you're eating. And the second thing is, only if you do a little bit of research, just completely based on the place that you live at, and only if you can figure out what would suit you, what would suit your body, in terms of the place that you live at, the temperature of the place, the environment, the climate, and so on. Only then will you be able to advise other people who come to meet you, and you can advise your clients to do the same thing. So the first thing that we have to talk about is, ask them for their daily routine, ask them for what kind of food they eat, what kind of vegetables they eat, how they cook their food, because all that becomes very important. Whether they eat a lot of processed food, whether they have a lot of food that's already made, that's ready to eat. So I met this one person who was a realtor, and she told me that she said she was putting on a lot of weight, so she decided that she was going to diet. And her kind of work was so stressful and strenuous, because she's always traveling, and she's kind of showing people houses, and she's always somewhere or the other. And she said she loves hosting people home, and she said she doesn't cook food because she doesn't have time to cook, and she doesn't have the passion towards cooking or anything, so she doesn't cook food. So what she used to do is, she used to go to Wegmans or Whole Foods, and they have this one counter there where they sell food that's hot, right? So every day they make different kinds of things, and you can just go there and pick up whatever you want. So this person, she would go in the morning before she went to meet her client. She would go to the nearest store, and she would just pick up something on the way. So she would either pick up a burger or a sandwich or something of that sort, and that would be her food. So later on, she realized that she was gaining weight, and she thought it was perhaps because she was eating a lot of food that she picked up. Like, she would either get pasta or something, but it would invariably always have meat. So she decided to do this super dieting, and she went and consulted somebody, and they told her that she should just diet and she should stop eating food like this. So instead, what she started doing, she ate just one meal a day. So that one meal would be something that she picked up from one of these stores, where she would go and just grab something that had a lot of meat, because she thought that was protein that she needed. And she cut down on her carbs, so she would just go there and get some kind of meat that was either something that was baked, but it would just be meat, either red meat or whatever. It would just be meat. And all the other meals that she ate was this superfood. It was a smoothie that she would eat, which had all different kinds of fruits, and she had a protein powder with her, which she would add to that. And she was wondering why she had a lot of acidity and why she was gaining weight. Now, you guys tell me, if someone had this kind of a diet, and if if this was the kind of routine that a person has, where you're just basically eating meat, your only solid food is meat, and the rest of the day you're just having this one super smoothie that God knows what they've put into, with a lot of protein powder, do you think that will kind of help you? Because I was shocked when she told me this, and and she was surprised that she wasn't losing weight. I mean, how do you lose weight when you do something like that? And you just, so when she started talking to me, all I could think of was, oh my god, there's a lot of vata that would increase because there's no food that's going in, and then whatever she's eating is just going to kind of uh, create havoc to the agni. And then she was just eating food that was just basically had a lot of spice and meat, and her pitta was going to go out of control. So again, when you need to help somebody like this, you need to know what food they eat, what their basic routine is, so you can tell them what to correct, right? So now, once you've spoken about what to remove from their food, what to remove from their diet, now you need to tell them what kinds of things they can add to their diet. So the basic thing is, you need whole grains like whole wheat, oats, millet, or whatever grains you're using. You need whole grains. Now you can either make, you can just make rice out of it, or you can make different kinds of things. Like with whole wheat, there are people who actually make a kind of wheat rice or a porridge, and there are different kinds of things that you can make out of it. My mother does something that's very interesting. Actually, she powders these whole grains together, and she makes a kind of crepe with it. So it's basically like this very healthy crepe, which has whole wheat, which has millets, which has barley, which has a little bit of quinoa. So she just basically puts everything together. And in India, we call we call it a dosa. Okay, so it's basically like a crepe that you make. Exactly. So she just puts everything together, and that's like a super breakfast to have in the morning. You can have it with like a coconut chutney, or you can have it with maybe a lentil soup or something like that. It's very healthy because it's not just rice that's in there. It just has, no, it's actually very easy to make. You powder everything and you keep it, and all you have to do is like how you make your like how you put you put the cereal and you pour milk and you have it. It's just similar to that. You just make it, you just you mix it together, and you make a yeah, and then you just make crepes out of it. So it's really easy to make, and it's very, very healthy. Okay, the next thing is the oil that you use for cooking. Cold pressed organic oil for cooking, and based on the dosha, you can kind of tell them what kind of oil they can use, and so on. Two three important things that you have to keep in mind is, uh, people who reuse their oil. Like if you've made something, if you fried something, and then you have the habit of reusing the oil, you need to avoid doing that. The second thing is, if your clients are people who eat a lot of meat, you need to tell them that they need to be extra careful, because already that is going to take away a lot of prana, that is going to take away a lot of goodness from the food. So then they need to be more careful about the kind of oil that they use, and about reusing oil. Okay, then what kind of lentils and beans, and what kind of fresh vegetables, fruits, dairy, protein, and what all can be used. Like I was telling you, these fruits and vegetables, they come with a little sticker on them, if you've noticed, and each of these stickers have a little number. Now, till my whole Apple episode, I had no clue about this, because it just looked good, and I would just go there and pick up whatever I wanted. But then after that, I actually started reading, and I kind of figured that everything that you buy has this label, and has a number, and has a tag and whatever. And not many people have the time to look at all that. You're always in a hurry to shop, and you go there and you're just trying to fill your grocery bags, and you're always in a hurry. So then I realized that there are numbers. So if you want to buy organic produce, there are these numbers that you have to note. So it's like a 5-digit number that starts with 9. So most of that is the organic so that will kind of tell you that the fruits and vegetables that you buy are organic, right? So that's something that you could probably look at. Another thing is like going to farmers markets and buying things from the farmers market, so you know that, again, the produce is local, the produce is organic, and it's good. Most important thing, to ensure that the vegetables, fruits, your fresh grocery is non-GMO, and that is very important, right? The next thing is spices. So you can use different kinds of spices. Like you can use coriander seeds, cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, mustard seeds. There are different kinds of spices that are available. So you can use different kinds of so these spices would basically add flavor to your food, as well as they would take away from the food. If the food had some kind of a negative effect, it would take away that from the food. Like for instance, if you were using so in most of these vegetables and all that, in India there's this habit of seasoning the vegetables, right? So you season with mustard seeds, with a little bit of cumin, or with ajwain, or whatever. Different people use different seeds, so that just basically ensures that food gets digested faster. If you're using something like if you're using potatoes to cook, and if potatoes are if potatoes have a lot of vata in them, you add something that would take away that vata from the potato. So you can add a little bit of ginger, you can add a little bit of cumin, or you can add a little bit of ajwain in your seasoning, so that will kind of nullify the negative effect that the particular vegetable would have. The next thing is dried fruits like figs, dates, apricots, different kinds of fruits, different kinds of nuts. Those can be added to your diet. Yeah. So whole seeds, so generally when you add whole seeds, you kind of, I wouldn't say that they're better than the powders, because more or less the effect is the same, but it's just that when you're using the whole seeds, it's like you're using, it's like a slightly better thing where you're using the entire thing. So the effect that the spice has on your food is a little more, there's a little more flavor and whatever. But yeah, more or less the action more or less remains the same when they're dried seeds and when you use the powder. So the thing with the powder is, it kind of mixes well with the food, and then there are some people who are very fussy about eating. So if they see whole pods of the seed, the spice seed, then they don't like eating it. So they'll kind of put that aside and eat it. So if it's powder, it just kind of mixes better with your food, and you're kind of eating the entire thing. But effect wise, they're more or less the same. The difference would be if you're using like a fresh if you're using like a fresh spice, like if you're using fresh coriander leaves, and then if you're using like dried coriander seeds, that kind of a difference would be there. And then the last thing is asking questions about the kind of shopping that they do for their grocery. So this is something that so I did this one course on nutrition. So this is something that my guide told me, and she said, when you go for your shopping, this is very important, because if you go hungry to a grocery store, you just end up buying a lot of unhealthy stuff, and you just end up buying things more than what you need for your cooking. So she said, if you go for your grocery shopping, you need to go after a meal, and you need to plan your grocery trip. So you need to write down exactly what you need, exactly what you're looking for, and then go and buy stuff. Because otherwise you have this tendency of going and you see some kind of a dessert that you like, or you see some junk here or there, and then you have this one temptation to buy it because you're hungry and because you really don't have a plan, and you're kind of you're looking through everything. You can eat the entire seed, but the thing is, like, if you're using a cardamom pod, then you kind of remove the outer pod, and you can eat the seeds. Yeah, once they're cooked, you can eat the seeds. but the thing is, people don't really appreciate the taste of, like, say, if there's a clove, if you have a piece of clove, then um, people don't really like the taste of that, the whole spice. So they have a tendency of, keep putting that away, and you pick them out and you eat just the food. So in that sense, using the powder becomes more effective, because that way it's all mixed with the food, right? But you can eat the spice. The spice doesn't really, you can eat it. It doesn't affect you. So these are basic things that you require for cooking. You need to have a gas stove. Um, Again, this is something that the effect of pressure cooking on prana. So, actually, pressure cooking food. So this is a very Ayurvedic understanding of pressure cooking. This is something that one of the Ayurvedic acharyas in Kerala was talking to us about this. So what he said was, when you pressure cook food, you just basically, it's like steam cooking food. So the food is healthier, as in you're not adding a lot of oil. Your pan, you're not adding oil to remove things. You're not using a non-stick pan or whatever. So if you really look at the food is healthier, because it's a form of steam cooking the food. But what he said was, when you pressure cook food, he said you're adding a lot of vata to the food. So if you use pressure cooked food very regularly, then there is a lot of chance that, whatever you eat would kind of increase the vata in your food. Exactly, I thought that was a very interesting way of looking at it, because pressure cooking, normally, you're not adding extra oil, you're not adding anything back to the food, and you're just kind of steaming the food, right? There's pressure that's there in. But so he said that, if you cook dal, or if you cook, so if you cook, for most of these lentil soups, if you cook dal in a pressure cooker, he said that that particular dish that you make will have more vata, will have a lot of, you'll feel a lot of gas formation, compared to if you just use a pot or and cook um, this thing in it. So you have to soak them for a bit, because then, it becomes easier to cook. So you soak it for a bit, and then you cook. This is just something that he said. So I kind of, tried that out too. So there are people who actually use the pressure cooker to make rice. So he said, if you really have to use the pressure cooker because you don't have time and that's just easier to do, he said you have to add a little bit of hingu to the food, or you need to season, you need to season spices that will cut off the effect of vata. Like, you add hingu, or you add some ginger, or you add cumin, and things that will kind of suppress this whole vata that is formed. Yeah. Slow cooker, again, so in slow cooker, what happens is, the whole cooking idea behind using a slow cooker is that, you give more time for the food to cook. So you kind of, the stock that comes out of it is tastier and is better, right? But again, over here, when you keep cooking the food, one thing that you have to ensure is that you don't overcook anything that's gone into whatever you've put in, because even if you overcook it a tad bit, then there's just this whole, the whole prana of the food is gone. So that's just it tastes good, because obviously when you cook it for a longer time, everything kind of combines well together. But then if you keep cooking it, and you keep you keep cooking it, you're just kind of, and whether you add kapha or pitta to it completely depends on the kind of things that go into your food, right? So basic things that you need when you're making your food: you need to have a gas stove, you need to have a steamer, you need to have cookware that is not non-stick. Using non-stick is not advisable. So use something that's stainless steel, or use something. So over here, people actually use those earthen pots, those real heavy iron. pans and iron pots and iron dishes. Um, yeah, you can use that. That's healthy. So just basically something that doesn't have a coating that you can scrape out, and that the coating that gets mixed to your food, right, that has to be avoided. So you use something that's just healthier, that's either iron or stone or stainless steel or whatever, that doesn't that cannot mix with your food. So if you have the habit of using stainless steel, then you need to slowly, I mean, sorry, not stainless steel, non-stick, then you need to slowly come out of that, because that the more you keep, the more you use a ladle to, stir your food together, the more chances of all that, coming onto your food is higher. And then again, using like a mortar and pestle that is either stone or something, so something that's actually you get even steel mortars and pestles that's easy to use, just to kind of grind some of those little spices that you want to add into your thing. You could use copper, yeah. You need to take good care of copper though. It's healthier to use a marble one or a stone one, right? You need a pressure cooker for your general cooking. Like I told you, if you're adding dal and all that and making, then you just, so basically most of the cooking that we do, if you feel that a particular dish that you're making has a lot of vata, you add ingredients that will cut down the vata. If you think it has a lot of pitta, you add ingredients that will cut down pitta. So basically your entire cooking is like this little science experiment that you're doing, and you're just trying to nullify the effect of these doshas, so you're not creating a dosha with the food that you've made. So you need to have a crock pot, a rice cooker, you need to have a recipe book, you need to have a kettle, and just basic things that you need for for you to get started with your whole cooking journey. So when I got married, I made my sister cooks pretty well. So I made my sister write this recipe book with all these real fancy recipes and all that. And then when I kind of got a little, when I started cooking a little bit, then I stopped using the recipe book and I started using YouTube. So you could use YouTube too if you don't have a recipe book. There are wonderful recipes on YouTube, and it's so much easier, right, to watch a video and cook. So now different kinds of spices that you add to your food. Indian cooking is all about the different spices that you use, and with Ayurveda, most of these spices that we use are therapeutic. They have a lot of like they kind of balance out the doshas. They add a lot of flavor to your food. They are aromatic, and then they kind of add that little aroma to the food that you make. So there are different kinds of spices that you can use. Like you can use ginger, turmeric, which are basically roots. You can use cinnamon bar or licorice bar. You can use cloves, leaves like bay leaves, rose, lavender, petals, star anise, peppercorns, almonds, fennel, coriander, cumin, and so many different kinds of spices. There are different people have different ways of using these spices. So basically the idea about using these spices is to ensure that these spices help in the whole process of digestion, in the whole process of assimilation, absorption of food. They play an important role in maintaining your Agni, which is the most important thing as far as Ayurveda is concerned. Again, it will kind of digest the armor and remove the armor. So you can use these spices either before your food or during your food or after your food. So most of the time when the people actually have a little bit of cumin or a little bit of a clove or something after you finish eating your food, so that will kind of help with the digestion. And again, if you've eaten something that's pungent and that has an odor, if you chew one little clove, that will kind of clear that odor out. So another thing that you use these spices for is to balance out the negative aspects of food. Like if you're making food that's very spicy, you add something that's a little cooling to the food, right? And if you add something, if your food is very dry, you can add a little bit of ghee to it. You add like pepper or cumin or something to potatoes. It will remove the negative effect of potatoes and so on. Another thing is hingu. So people add hingu when you make dal or when you make lentils and so on. So that will remove the vata from the lentils, right? So you can use, you can either use the whole spice, you can use the whole seeds, dried spice, or you can powder the spice and you can use them. So now the most important thing is to buy spices from a very reliable vendor. There are people who mix these spices, and there are certain spices that are substituted and so on. So you make sure you buy it from someone who's reliable, so you don't buy an adulterated product. The second thing is make sure that the spices are whole, are organic, and you're not buying just some kind of a packaged spice that has a lot of things mixed together. So most of these, if you've ever been to an Indian grocery store, there are these masalas that you get, right? There are different kinds of masalas, and Indian cooking has a lot of masalas. uh, I would suggest that if there are people who like Indian food, or people who are trying to completely make a very Ayurvedic kind of a diet, don't buy these cardboard masalas from a store, but instead you buy the whole spices. You can powder them. You can either dry roast them and powder them, and then mix them together, and you can make your own masalas based on whatever you like. Even just in terms of Ayurvedic cooking, Ayurvedic food, and nothing to do with Indian food, or I'm not talking about rich food and with a lot of things in it, but just very simple things. Like if you like using cumin, you like using you can use cumin. You can either use the seeds, or you can even use powder, cumin powder. So all I'm saying is, instead of going to a store and buying the powder, a packaged cumin powder, you can just buy the whole spice, and you can dry roast it and then powder it yourself. So you know that the spice is organic and is genuine and has nothing mixed in it, right? So you need to remove them from the plastic containers, remove them from the cardboard boxes or whatever, and store it in an airtight glass container. That's the safest way of storing food. And these whole spices, they have a longer shelf life, and they last longer. The fragrance and the taste and everything lasts longer. When you've powdered them, they kind of tend to go stale faster, and they kind of lose that fragrance and aroma and all that faster. So you need to store it in a cool, dark place, and you don't have to refrigerate them. You can just store it away from moisture and heat and air and so on, and your spices should last long and be good to use. So you can either dry roast the spices, or you can add a little bit of ghee or oil and then roast the spices in that. If you're using seeds, you add those seeds first, and then you nicely roast the seeds. If you're adding dried and fresh spices, then that goes in next, and then the powdered spice would go in last. Now the only thing that you have to actually be careful about when you add spices is to make sure that you don't have it, if you don't have your flame on high, because these spices, especially the powders, they tend to burn faster. So if you're cooking something and if your flame is on high, you need to make sure that you don't let the spices burn, because these spices have a tendency of burning very fast. So either you keep the flame a little lower, or you need to make sure that you're mixing your food real well, and you're kind of roasting it and not allowing the spices to burn. So there are these are some of the terminology that you need to know. So you know that there are 6 rasas in Ayurveda. You have 2 kinds of virya, where you have either a heating virya or a cooling virya, and you have three vipakas, which is the taste that you get after the food is gone through the digestive system. So rasa is basically the taste that is perceived through your tongue, and it is one of the tanmatras of water, the element water. And there are 6 rasas: sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, and astringent. So these are some examples. Like sweet rasa has earth and water elements in it. It would increase kapha, pacify vata and pitta. So certain examples would be grains, dates, honey, ripe bananas, and so on. Sour is amla rasa, so your citrus fruits, yogurt, anything that has a little soury taste, that would increase pitta and kapha and pacify vata. Then the salty rasa, which is lavana, so that would increase pitta and kapha and decrease or balance your vata. Then you have a pungent rasa, like the taste that you get from onions, from pepper, from garlic. So that would increase kapha, pacify vata and pitta. And then you have the bitter rasa, which would which would pacify pitta and kapha and increase vata. And examples of that are coffee, your bitter greens, bitter gourd, turmeric, neem. And then the last rasa is an astringent rasa, which is called kashaya rasa. So examples of that is pomegranate, unripe bananas, blueberries, broccoli, and so on. So certain herbs or spices that you can use in your cooking. One is rose, which is called shatapatri. So this rose has an effect of balancing all your 3 doshas. It is pungent and bitter. It kind of it helps in your digestion. It's something called hridyam, which means it kind of is very conducive to the heart. It benefits your blood flow. It is an aphrodisiac, and it has anti-inflammatory properties. So you can either make a jam out of this using rose petals, which will kind of have a very cooling effect on your body, mind, and emotions. Or you can even make a syrup using these rose petals, and you can add that syrup to your food. You can add it to a drink, or you can make a drink out of it, or you can add it to your milk, or something like that. Or you can even just add it to your food. And it's extremely good in winters, in summers, when it's very hot and when your body starts, you start feeling that heat, and when you have a lot of heat building up in your body, you can use these rose petal syrup. So you can use a rose petal jam. Another thing is, it's extremely good for the female reproductive system also. Some kind of a thing that's made using these rose petals. And if you don't want to eat it, you can even apply it on yourself. If you have these sun rashes, if you're allergic to the sun, if you're allergic to sweat, if you're allergic to heat, you can apply, you can either put it in a spray bottle and use it, or you can just apply a paste of it on your face, and so on. Turmeric. Now, turmeric is a kind of, is one of the most important spices in Indian cooking. So I keep talking about this also. So if you buy these vegetables that have insecticides or pesticides, or you're not sure about how organic and how pure those vegetables are, one thing that you could do is you could soak those vegetables in a little bit of water with a pinch of turmeric in it, and that turmeric will kind of take away from the fruits or vegetables any toxins or waste products that was probably sprayed into it. It has a lekana guna, which kind of scraping quality. So if there is some some kind of fat or some kind of poison that's stuck, it will kind of scrape it and take it out. It enhances your digestion. It is a blood purifier. It promotes menses. it kind of improves your complexion. It can be used in case of poisons or worms or whatever. If people get bitten by some insect, or if there's some kind of a thing, you just apply a paste of turmeric, and that will take away the poison, that will take away the inflammation that's caused. So this turmeric is an extremely good antibiotic, and it reduces inflammation. So if you use a pinch of turmeric in your food, it's extremely good for you. It's very, very good for you. So people these days have organic turmeric tablets, right? But if you can incorporate turmeric into your cooking, if you can, you don't have to add too much of it, because that will kind of make your food taste a little bitter. So you just add a pinch of turmeric to your food, and that's very, very good for you. That's very good for your body. And that it kind of increases your immunity also. So the chances of you falling sick becomes very less with turmeric. Cloves or lavang. So this is a bitter, pungent spice which stimulates your appetite. It increases your digestion. It can be had as a mouth freshener. You can it kind of relieves bad breath, and it relieves tastelessness. It's very useful in bleeding disorders. It removes phlegm from the body. It prevents nausea. It's an analgesic, and anti-asthmatic, and so on. So you can either just use the whole spice. You can dry roast it and add that to your food, or you can powder it and use the powder of this particular spice to your vegetables, or to gravies that you make. Or you can mix it with cardamom, with cinnamon, and so on, and then make a spice mix with different kinds of spices, and that mix can be powdered, and that can be used in different kinds of food that you make. So in case of morning sickness, in case of nausea, you can use this with ginger, or just one pod of this clove alone will also help people who have morning sickness or nausea. Ginger. So you can use fresh ginger, or you can use dry ginger. So fresh ginger would be a little more heavier and unctuous, whereas dry ginger would be dry and penetrating. So if you have too much of ginger, that because of the heat that this ginger has, that would increase the pitta dosha. But to a certain extent, just a normal sufficient amount of ginger would increase your digestion, would increase your agni. It would destroy toxins, and this ginger, if you make a juice with fresh ginger and you use that extract with a little bit of honey, it's extremely good for cough, for breathing difficulties. In case of fever, like when you feel you're coming down with the fever, you start feeling, you start having those the symptoms of fever. If you have a little bit of ginger extract with honey, that will kind of reduce the intensity of your fever, and you'll feel better much faster. So you can use ginger powder as one of the when you cook, when you make different kinds of vegetables and all, you can use ginger powder in that. Fresh ginger, you can use just as it is. Or if you want to add a little bit of taste to your cooking, what I like doing is I like sauteing a little bit of ginger and a little bit of garlic. Again, garlic is extremely good. So I like using a little bit of ginger and garlic, and that kind of adds a lot of flavor to your food. Cinnamon stick. So cinnamon is a little pungent, sweet, and astringent. So that would, again, in excess would increase your pitta, but it generally helps to improve your digestive fire. It can be used in case of throat pain. It relieves throat pain, headache. It is a diuretic. It improves your metabolism. It's an expectorant. you can, again, like I was telling you about clove, you can use it along with cardamom, along with clove. You can make, a thing. So there's this one masala that's really famous. It's called garam masala. So in most of, if you guys have tasted Indian food, in most of these gravies that are made, right, this garam masala is added. It just adds a lot of flavor to your food. So in that, you have cinnamon, you have cardamom, you have cloves, you have pepper, you have, different kinds of things. People make garam masala using different kinds of spices. So these are like very common spices in garam masala. So you can add this with ginger, and you can have it. Or the most in thing is having cinnamon powder with honey. That cinnamon powder and honey is supposed to be very beneficial to your body. Just chewing a small piece of the cinnamon would actually strengthen your teeth. And cinnamon oil is actually used for wound healing in case of some insect bite or something. Just 2 or 3 drops of cinnamon oil can be used. And the cinnamon is one of the ingredients of a very famous medicine called Shitopaladi Churnam, that is used for coughs, that's used for congestions, that's used as an expectorant to remove phlegm and all that. So there are different ways you can use it. You can make tea with cinnamon. You can add it to your food. You can add it to. You can even add a little bit of cinnamon powder to your to your drinks. If you make smoothies or something, you can add a pinch of that, and that will kind of enhance the whole effect of that particular smoothie. Coriander. So coriander is called dhanyaka. Coriander is effective for all the doshas, especially for pitta dosha. So it is an appetite stimulant, kills worms. It can be used in case of IBS, or in case of colics, in case you have a lot of flatulence, a lot of vata. It can be used for jwara, for fever. It's actually one of those spices that can be used to relieve thirst. So you can add coriander to fennel, cumin, cardamom, and use it as a combination, or you can just boil this coriander in water, or and then use that. You strain the water, and you can use that water, or you add coriander to cold water, and you just let it stay overnight, and the next day morning you can strain this coriander out, and you can use that water for thirst, for people who have a lot of thirst, and if there's a lot of heat and dryness that is generated in the body. Apart from that, you can use coriander leaves. You can use fresh coriander leaves in your cooking. It adds flavor to your food, and it's very effective health-wise also. Cumin. So cumin is one of my favorite spices. If you have too much of cumin, however, there's a chance of increasing pitta. In moderate amounts, it's extremely good for your body. It improves your digestion. It digests toxins. Most important use of cumin is it redirects the flow of vata. So for people who have vata problems, people who have this, there are people who have food and then they start feeling very uneasy. They have this gas formation and they start feeling very uneasy. So what happens generally is they have this samana vata and apana vata that's just going all over the place. And when vata starts moving in directions that are not meant to be its own, it starts creating pain and gas and a lot of other problems. So in that case, you can just dry roast some cumin, add that to water and boil that water, and then strain that water and use that particular water. It will immediately help your vata problems, and it will redirect the flow of vata downwards. So you will feel this little bit of flatulence, and then suddenly you feel that your stomach has kind of settled down. So if people have diarrhea, then you can give them a little bit of that, because that will kind of help. It will clear mucus and congestion and so on. So again, you can use ginger, you can use jeera just as such. You can use the powder. You can mix it with fennel and coriander and cardamom, and you can use it as a combination. Jeera is even part of a lot of masalas that are made, so you can add that to your masala mix, and you can use that in your cooking. Saffron. So saffron is called kurkuma, and the saffron is like one of those. It's like one of those rich spices, which is it balances all the three doshas. It has this rasayana effect, and saffron, the original pure saffron, is kind of expensive too. So not many people buy and use saffron because it's not like one of those spices that would be there in everybody's house. People do buy it for occasions, like if there's some kind of an occasion, then they want to make like a payasam, or they want to make like a sweet rice pudding or something like that, then they do buy this and use it. But it's an extremely good spice. It improves your complexion. It can be used for people who have amenorrhea or dysmenorrhea, along with ginger. The best way of using this saffron is to soak it in warm water, and you leave that in warm milk, and you leave that for some time, and then that is when saffron kind of and you get the best. You can extract the best portion of saffron by doing that, and then that is used in different ways. But the most common thing is it's added to your kheer. It's added to actually saffron milk is a very very common way in which saffron is used. It's added to a lot of Indian sweets. It's added to sweets that are made using rava. There's a sweet called kesari that's made, and in that sweet, after everything is over, they just add a little bit of cashew nut and a little bit of saffron, and that just basically adds to the dish that's made, and it just kind of gives it a lot of richness and taste. Cardamom ela or sukshma ela. So cardamom is a pungent and sweet spice that kind of balances all the doshas, but in excess it would increase your pitta dosha. So cardamom is used, it increases your digestion, it stops cough, it clears Kledaka kapha, and this again is something that's added. It can be added to savories as well as sweets. It's added to your rice pudding. It's added to savories. It's added along with clove, along with cinnamon. It can be added to whatever to your gravies. It can be added to vegetables and so on. It can be used as a combination or just used as such. And if you chew a piece of this cardamom, it will relieve bad breath, and it helps in case of indigestion. It also helps when you have a bad bout of vomiting. If you chew a small piece of this cardamom, it kind of relieves it relieves vomiting. So so the green variety of cardamom is actually, it is cold potency, and the black variety is hot potency. So that would be like the main difference between the green and the black variety of cardamom. And again, the green variety is pungent and sweet in taste, whereas the black variety is pungent and bitter in taste. Apart from that, all the basic characteristics are the same. The rasa, guna, virya, vipaka, everything else is the same. This is the main difference between the green and black variety of cardamom. And so the green variety is what is used in eladi thailam, and in eladi churnam and eladi gritam and all that's made. the Sukshma, the green variety is what is used. And the black variety is used in a preparation called Kalyanaka Ghritam, which is given for Manasa disorders. And there's another asavam that's made called Sharivyadi asavam. So in that asavam also there's this black variety of cardamom that's used. So that would be the main difference. Asafoetida or hingu. So this again is a very, very pungent, very strong spice. It's heavy. It penetrates right in. If you have a lot of this hingu, it will kind of increase your pitta. Actually, recently I had this gentleman who came to the office, and he had these he had these real rare spices and rare medicinal herbs and all that, and then he had one box with hingu in it, and he wanted us to taste a bit of this hingu, and he said this is like the purest form of hingu and you would have never had something like this, and so on. And this hingu is used in a lot of Ayurvedic medicines, like there's hingu ashtaka churnam that's made, and there are like a lot of things that you use hingu. So I had a less than a pinch of this hingu that this person brought, and you won't believe it, for almost 3 hours I had that one that one taste of hingu that just wouldn't go, despite drinking water, despite whatever. It was that strong, and that is how strong and pungent this particular spice is. Now the most effective thing about this hingu is when there is an apana vata disturbance, it will go there and set your vata right. So when you make dishes that have a lot of dal in it, and that has like rajma, tur dal, your masoor dal, the orange variety and all that, which increases your vata way above what you can imagine. When there's a lot of vata that's induced, this hingu is added to it, and that just kind of does this perfect anulomana of vata. And for people who who are due, the menses is due when they don't get their period, a little bit of hingu would actually induce the period, because it's hot, and it'll just go there, and it does anulomana. So whenever there's an apana vata dushti, hingu would go there and set the apana vata right. Now it increases your agni. It can be used with fennel for digestion. It can be used in it can be used with different things for different purposes and so on. Even when you buy it from Indian stores, you should make sure you don't buy the hingu that people normally use for South Indian dishes called sambar. There's this one LG brand of hingu that's available in most of these stores. Again, that's a very, very diluted version of this hingu, that has a lot of things that's added to it. You need that powder is not like the best of powder. So I should check the link that you've sent. I'll check it after the class. The next thing is fennel. So fennel again balances all the three doshas. It improves your digestive fire, your digestion. It can be, it can be given for lower abdominal pain. It improves your agni. For people who have cough and asthma problem, fennel can be used. So you can again use it with cumin. You can use it separately. This fennel is what you get in Indian stores called somf. So that's given at the end of your end of your food. You chew a little bit of that. It kind of improves your it takes away any bad odor and whatever. The only thing that you have to remember about this fennel seeds is that it is not an aphrodisiac. So if you have a client who's actually going through some kind of an aphrodisiac therapy, or if they're trying to have a baby, then you don't give them something that has a lot of fennel in it, because that can kind of go and hinder that process. And so that's like one thing that you should probably remember about fennel, right? So lavender. Now lavender is pungent, it's sharp, penetrates right there. It's oily, it's light. It is an antidepressant. It redirects the flow of apana vata. It reduces fevers, and it has a lot of lot of benefits. The most common usage of this lavender is when it's added to your dairy, or added to cream or custard, or it's added on, or to butter, and that's like one of the most common ways that in which it's eaten, either with scones or with muffins or whatever. Apart from that, it's even added to your vegetables when you make a salad, or it's added as a dressing for salad, so on. So lavender oil is available. Lavender oil is used as one of those. It's used for aromatherapy, and it's even added to. It kind of has a real nice fragrance, a very very mild, nice fragrance. It's like one of those essential oils that um, people like using for relieving pain, for there's some kind of a congestion in your head, and a gentle massage with that particular oil is really good. Even just smelling that oil kind of makes you feel good, and so on. So with Indian food, very rarely do people use this lavender spice. But then it's more like the oil, and the essential oil and all that is used. But it is added with salads. It is added with pastas. It is added with Italian food and so on, and that kind of lends flavor to it. Like, it tastes great when you use lavender with oregano or with thyme. That combination kind of really makes this lavender taste really good. So that is kind of with that I kind of finish a small introduction to how you can start your Ayurvedic kitchen. If you guys have homework or whatever, Monica ji will tell you about the homework. Do you have any doubts in this? You can ask me, or you can put it up on the forum, and we can talk more about it. So thank you guys. I'm done with my class. Thank you. Over to you, Monica ji.